first real gut-wrenching, absolute in agony, painful experience. Yeah, that's easy. That was way back in the day at Notting Hill Carnival. Yeah, this was back when I was 15. So this is a long time ago. Yeah, because I'm 48 now. So yeah, I know I'm a bit of a dinosaur, but yeah, back when I was 15, way back in the days at Notting Hill Carnival. So I was with my good friend, one of my good friends, yeah, who I shall name Jigaros. Yeah, he'll be able to identify himself with that name. Obviously, that's not his real name, but yeah, I was with him, and just me and him, Notting Hill Carnival. This is London back in the days when you used to get some like you used to get seasons. You used to have like winter, um, you know, going through to your spring, summer, autumn. You used to get seasons, so it's a nice summer day. I remember it was nice. The weather was nice for Notting Hill. Anyway, sorry, I'm getting a bit nostalgic. Um, so yeah, so I'm there, me and my good friend, and we're taking it all in. So you got like, I don't know if your listeners, some of your listeners may not know about Notting Hill Carnival, yeah, because they may from different parts of the world. Basically, Notting Hill Carnival, I believe, is Europe's biggest carnival. Yeah, if I'm not right on that fact, yeah, you can fact check me. I'm not too sure, but I believe it is. But basically, it's one of the biggest carnivals. Definitely biggest in the UK. I'm sure. Um, Again, fact check me if I'm wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure. But basically, Notting Hill Carnival in London, you can't beat it. I know it's centered around and the Caribbean festivities, and it's all things. Well, originally when it started, it was all things very much Caribbean, but obviously as time goes on, you've got the different music genres that have kind of obviously has its influence at Notting Hill Carnival as well. So it's like carnival music. So you've got like your soca music, you got your calypso music, you've got your reggae music, you've got your bashment music, you've got your hip hop music. So it's just a nice cultural event. You've got all different cultures coming together, to really have fun. At this time of year at Notting Hill Carnival. So I'm there with my friend. We're taking it all in. We're walking along the streets, Notting Hill. The music's going on, the calypso, the soca music. It's all good. All people dressed up, having a good time. So now, um, and I don't even think we were there that long. That's what this makes this even worse for me, because I remember smelling like we're walking, and I remember getting hungry. Actually, that's a lie. I probably wasn't even hungry, but I just remember smelling like the smell of the burgers being grilled by the vendors on this. Because you obviously at Carnival as well, you got people obviously selling different types of food and what have you, like vendors. So what I should have done, I should have stuck with my traditional Caribbean eating habits, rather as opposed to kind of like getting wide-eyed and going for the burger. But anyway, so basically, long story long, I chose a burger from a burger vendor. It looked fine. My friend had the very good common sense, even at such a young age of of 14. Yeah, he's yeah younger than me. Not to eat the burger. So obviously he was much wiser than me from a food point of view. It took me a little while, even after that experience, to catch up. But anyway, I ate the burger. And I tell you what, it wasn't even 3 minutes after eating that burger, all right, that I felt a sharp pain like in my gut. Yeah, I want to say it was just where was like it's probably just like below the diaphragm. Obviously, it's like yeah, below the diaphragm. You know what I mean? Around that area. So we're talking probably around like the small intestines, where your body's essentially absorbing food, absorbing nutrients. So yeah, I remember it didn't take long. So after a couple of minutes, a few minutes, every step I took, the pain just got increasingly worse. It just like it went up 5 levels, 10 levels, literally every step, to the point where I was doubled over in pain. I was like, nah, this ain't happening. Nah. And I wanted someone to put me out of my misery. Make no mistake about it. Um, because the pain was so bad. Like it was. I've never experienced anything like it. I want to say I haven't experienced anything like it since, but there has been other times where it's come close to that, unfortunately. Um, but yeah, like we had to go home. You know what I mean? And you got to understand from where we were at Notting Hill Carnival, we're coming all the way from North London, so that's not a short journey home. So we came by tube. So now I wanted to do Alice in Wonderland and clip my heels and just be home instantly because of the pain I was going through. But obviously that wasn't going to happen. So we had to get the tube, yeah, from Notting Hill um, back to North London. And the train ride itself was a long train ride anyway. Like it wasn't the shortest. Like you had to change a couple of times. Yes, there was no direct tube. I remember we got to the train station, and I think it was Notting Hill because you can walk to other train stations, tube stations as well. Um, but yeah, I remember seeing the queue, and the queue was long. It was long. So I just wanted to get on this tube as quick as possible and get home. Yeah, because I'm thinking I'm not gonna make it. And by not gonna make it, I don't mean I had the desire to like to be sick or for the contents of the food poisoning, because obviously that's what it was, an extreme case of food poisoning. For the contents of food to come out the other end. Because I know when some people have gone through that experience, food poisoning, then your body's looking to get rid of that, get it out of your system real quick, ASAP, and whether you want it or not. So thankfully that didn't happen, like, in public. Um, but when I'm looking at the queue, I was just thinking, oh my gosh, I felt like I was gonna die. Really, it did. So anyway, long story long, as I said, we get on, we have to queue up to get on the tube. That takes in itself, I'm gonna say, easily like 20 minutes or more. Now I'm sure it took like half an hour. Maybe it's just in my mind because I was in so much pain, but no, it definitely took longer than 20 minutes. Get on the tube, eventually get home. My mum sees me. Oh, by the time I get home, with God's grace, I wasn't sick until I got home. So I was vomiting profusely, like a lot. By the time I get home, all the colors like gone out my face. I'm not like I'm not. I'm on my last legs. Like I need to. Like someone needs to come and write my will and testament. So yeah, my mum sees me, and I remember she tried a few things at the time that were not working. I can't remember what exactly, but I remember she tried a few things, yeah, to kind of like settle this pain. Like that was really, really bad, like in my gut, in my stomach, like, super like excruciating, and it wasn't working. So in the end, what she had to do, she got she had white rum, yeah. So she had pure, like very, pure white rum with, obviously I had a high alcohol. No, was it rum? Nah, actually, I think it was vodka. To be fair, it might be. It's either white rum or it was vodka. I think it may have been vodka that she gave me. One of the two, you know what I mean. But anyway, so I think it might have been vodka. But anyway, she gave me like a cap full of that, and I downed it, and then that settled my stomach, settled my gut. Like eventually, it took me a good couple of weeks or so to recover from that. But to be honest with you, from that experience, my stomach, my gut was never really quite the same. Like, because every now and then, like, I wouldn't go through that experience, you know what I mean? Because from that time, I didn't eat anything from, like, as we say in London, off road again, you know what I mean? Because, I was going to put myself through that agony. But yeah, ever since then, like, from 15 up until my adulthood, yeah, my stomach was a bit weak and tender. It wasn't quite the same. But yeah, that was my, like, gut wrenching experience. And was it the first and last time? I'd like to say it was, but it wasn't. Not to say, as I said, I got food poisoning again, but I've had certain experiences that come close to that, whereby, as I said, because of that experience, that infiltration of bad meat weakened my gut. then there's been a few times, a couple of times since then where I've had situations where it's got pretty painful as well. But yeah, that was my first gut wrenching painful experience. Um, that wasn't the reason I decided to become a nutritionist though, because after that I still was eating like I wasn't eating good. I was still carrying on with my eating nonsense. As you are, you're 15, right? 16, 17. You don't really care too much. You're gonna eat what you want to eat, even if you have like that experience. So no, that didn't make me decide to become a nutritionist. What you know what? I don't even know what really made me decide to become a nutritionist, because maybe it was that experience subconsciously. Because basically, what happened, right? When I just started this, decided from, yeah, maybe it was that experience, because from about the age of 15, I was like, okay, I was eating everything and everything in terms of like sweets, baked goods, m- drinking milk, having fried foods, all this stuff, all the junk food and stuff of that nature. So, but then every so often I'd have a little epiphany, a little moment in my mind where I'd be like, oh, I need to kind of like stop drinking fizzy drinks. So that was actually a thing. So I remember one time, I think I might have been like 15 or 16. I decided, no, I'm going to stop drinking all fizzy drinks. I don't know where that came from. I know, I just like, I just want, I've thought, no, it's not good for you. It's not healthy for you. So I don't know where this came from. It's not to say anyone in my family was like super healthy or followed like a real healthy diet. But yeah, that's just what it was. So then after fizzy drinks, and then obviously, you're 15, 16, you've got no knowledge about nutrition. So when I stopped drinking fizzy drinks, I then decided to start having milkshake instead. So I thought that was healthier. Milk, because obviously back then I'm thinking milk's good for the bones. It's a good source of a calcium for the bones. It's healthy for you, which I don't hold that thought or that belief about milk or any dairy products today. Um, but yeah, I did then. So then after like drinking milkshakes, I was like, from like our local like news agents, like our little shops down the road from us. I was like, no, that can't be healthy. So then I think I maybe went on to like, I don't know, orange juice or something like that, whatever. I can't remember. But anyway, I just progressively started cutting stuff out. And then when I was maybe 18, I want to say, maybe 19, maybe, I was like, right, I'm gonna cut out all junk food. So I started eating, basically the only junk food I was eating was um McDonald's. So I stopped McDonald's completely. But I didn't even ease myself into it. I was like, nope, I'm gonna stop that. So I started eating McDonald's, started eating Burger King. The only one that was so hard for me to kick the habit was KFC. Because that chicken, I'm not gonna lie, that chicken was good. I mean, KFC chicken back in the days, I don't know what concoction or what they're doing or what type of chicken they're doing these days at KFC. What I mean? But back in the days, like that was a hard habit to kind of get rid of. So yeah, that took me a while. But once I eventually I kicked that, I did get over my KFC addiction, and then yeah, then just gradually it just progressed. Right, I just started cutting out things here and there, not every week, maybe every, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 months or so, maybe a year's time. I'm like, oh, okay, let me just cut that out. And I think what pushed me over the edge, so to speak, right, there was, and we used to go and we had, what do you call them, like after school programs back in the days, um, where down Hornsey, we had a place we could go to basically to kind of do like, for like, kids and stuff like that, where you could um, like hang out basically, and there'll be like people like, there that would like, who were like carers or not child minders. I don't know what the term is, but basically it was an after school program. It was in a school down in Hornsey, and me and my friends, we used to go there, and there used to be people obviously that used to be there, that would run it and look after us and stuff like that as kids and all that. And one of the guys there, he was a real, even like for his age, because he must have only been in his 20s then, but he was like real wise guy, man. um Dave, he gave me a book, right, about, because I think then I started reading a few. I might have read a book or two. I mean, nah, maybe even just one book about health. Yeah, because now things are developing. He gave me a book anyway. He either gave me a book or gave me a title of a book, but I think I want to say he gave me a book. When I read that book, I was like, oh, okay, like it was a book basically essentially about what food, how food, like healthy food, what that does for the body, how it invigorates the body, the benefits it has, etc. So after reading that book, that kind of book was like a bit of the aha tipping moment for me. Yeah, like, where it got me real thinking about food and like the effect it has on the body, and how healthy eating can really reap benefits. Because up until then, as I said, I was still, even though I was cutting out, I'd cut out like McDonald's and all the other ones. But I was still eating like baked goods. So I was still eating um like Kipling's, Mr. Kipling's. Oh my gosh, I used to love those. Like the fancy cakes you used to get. I don't know. Like you have to be from the UK. I don't know if you got them in any other country. Like you used to get two white, two yellow, two pink, two chocolate. These kind of local fancy cakes. It was just abomination of sugar, totally like 100% unhealthy. So I was still eating all that stuff. I was still going to the supermarket and buying little chocolate ghetto cakes to eat by myself. I used to do that. Yeah, after a meal, I would actually buy a chocolate ghetto cake, cut it in half, and have it to myself, and save the other half for the next day. My only saving grace was that I was, training a lot when I was a kid as well. I was into like, well, still am, but more Tai Chi now. But back then, I was training like when I started 15 is when I started like training, doing a lot of press ups, started doing Wing Chun Kung Fu, so I started getting big but in a muscly kind of way, when I was younger. So thankfully I was training quite intensely then. So I wasn't putting on any obscene amount of weight. But if I wasn't training, trust me, yeah. And in fact, there was a time when I wasn't training and I was getting a bit of a double chin. I remember my aunt telling me, and I think that kind of spurred me on to go and start training. But yeah, that's what yeah, become a nutritionist. I think it was that book definitely that made me decide to. And then it was when I really stopped eating everything. That was when I was 28 years old, I believe. So I'm in Barcelona with another good friend of mine, um, Creed, Apollo Creed. Again, that's not his real name, but we know him as Creed. You know what I mean? So he'll know who he is. And yeah, I know, like that's how it is back in the days and around my neighborhood. We all had nicknames for each other. So yeah, mine was Smiley, obviously. So yeah, so I was with him, 28. It's New Year. We're in Barcelona for New Year's. Yeah, having a good time, like in Barcelona. It's some warmer. It's a bit warmer than obviously than the UK at that time of year. You know, this was like well, got there before a few days before New Year's. Yeah, so I think we may have been there from, I don't know, 27th or something like that. 27th of Jan, and I was 28. So that was like, yeah, it's actually 20 years ago. My goodness. So and I remember the hotel we were staying at had a buffet for breakfast, and it was a buffet that had, like, you could have all different types of cakes. Obviously they had fruit, but I wasn't interested in no fruit. Um, then so I was just interested in that. But then I'm eating this like then that was the really that's when I changed definitely. 'Cause I think that that book I read, the information it lay there a bit dormant from so maybe this like 8 years, 9 years prior. But then at that time, then something just went off in my head, and I was like, you know what, this is gonna be the last time I'm eating this stuff. So I almost had like my last supper. Um, so I remember eating like cake at breakfast, eating all sorts of nonsense. And then and I was like, nah, after this, we get back to London. After this trip, that's it. I'm not eating this stuff again. And as I said that, then that was it. I didn't. I literally went from one day eating everything in terms of junk foods, having sugary foods, having sugar in my hot chocolate, having milk, having Cocoa Pops cereal, which I'd had since I was a kid with warm milk. I used to let it go soggy. And that was my staple, even through university. You know what I mean? I always had like boxes of Cocoa Pops. And I used to like let it with warm milk, let it soak in there and get soggy. I used to hate crunchy milk. All that stuff, all my favorite things. Lasagna was a favorite food of mine, you know. So I got rid of by all all processed sweet junk foods. I stopped eating all meats. No, like not even chicken. Yeah, so no chicken, no fish. So essentially, from one day to the next, I went from pure carnivore, highly eating processed food guy. You know, even though I'd cut out a few things over the years, you know, to eating, deciding to eat none of that and becoming vegan. Yeah. So so at that point at 28, yeah, even though on the outside I look pretty in good shape, yeah, not to like, as we say in London, not to big myself up or anything, but I was still training kung fu. I was still like, you know, doing a lot of like different kung fu press ups and stuff like that. So my body was in good shape. Yeah, again, that was only my only saving grace. And I was bigger then as well, you know, than I am now, in terms of like size and muscle and stuff like that. But when I became vegan and stopped all that food eating, I swear over almost overnight, man, I lost a lot of weight, man. Partly as well because I didn't know what I was doing. Um, like I had no knowledge in terms of like what to replace foods with, like, you know, what replacement foods. I had none. So I just went in there blind. And I'll tell you what used to happen to me as well. When I made that decision um, to do that and I stopped eating that stuff, if if at lunchtime, yeah, when come lunchtime, if I didn't have my lunch, and my body was used to getting lunch round about I'd eat lunch around about 1, yeah, half 12, 1 o'clock. All right. Afterwards, I changed my diet. If I didn't eat my lunch at half 12, 1 o'clock, I swear to God, a minute past that hour, yeah, 1 minute, 2 minutes past the hour, I'll get extreme, excruciating, not headaches, migraines, like proper full on. So obviously now what's happened, that's like my body going into like what's the words? When you're addicted to flipping drugs and stuff and you're going through withdrawal symptoms. Yeah, that's the word. So you're going through withdrawal symptoms. So because essentially my body from childhood was addicted to sugar, when you go from one day to the next not having any sugar, and I suppose it's same with like caffeine drinkers as well. I was never a coffee drinker. I never drank any coffee. That was never my thing. But when you have like sugar every day of your life from childhood, and you cut that out completely, let me tell you something. Your body's going to let you know about it, right? Yeah, because like it wants its fix. So I used to get these excruciating headaches, migraines. Yeah, and the same at dinner as well. If I had, if I, my body was used to getting dinner at a certain time, if it didn't have like, if I wasn't eating on the hour when it's used to it, forget it. bad migraines. So I think those migraines used to last, and they would last a good day, or like those that migraine and real bad headaches, they would last about a couple of days. So it didn't matter if like once the migraine or like the real bad headache, once it kicked in, if I ate, that didn't resolve it. I would have it like for at least like a day or so after until it settled down. So I had to make sure I was eating proper, you know what I mean, on the hour when my body was used to, and while I was going through this transitional period in my life. So like that scene at Pulp Fiction where the guy is saying he's gonna give up being a gangster, he's gonna walk the earth like King from Kung Fu. Yeah, so that was me essentially. But yeah, so when I made that change, that was when I made 28, lost a lot of weight. Did I feel better for it? I'm not gonna lie, I didn't feel. I felt lighter, literally, because I'd lost a lot of weight. I did feel lighter, but inside I didn't feel like, like, oh, I'm not gonna lie and sit here and say I had an explosion of energy and stuff like that. And then, there's a light shining down from the heavens, like none of that, but inside there was a bit of lightness there, you know what I mean? Not just from obviously losing the weight. I didn't want to lose the weight. That was never my goal, because you want to look like you got a bit of muscle and stuff like that, but it is what it is. But I didn't mind that anyway. So yeah, that was the only thing. Um, that was if there was a downside to it. But yeah, I just felt a bit better, inside. And I think eventually, the longer it went on, the better I felt for it. No, most definitely, And then so yeah, that was like 20, yeah, from 28, and then I'd done that, and then I was up until maybe about 6 years. I think I was eating like that, being a vegan or what have you. And then after that time, and then I became like pescatarian. So I started eating fish. I introduced fish and then chicken back into my diet thereafter. Because I was thinking, then I was like, okay, I need to get the protein because I wanted to kind of like get back or build muscle again. You know what I mean? Which is a bit difficult to do when you don't have the knowledge, because you can build muscle. You know, um, when it comes to when you're vegan or plant based, but you just have to have the knowledge in terms of what amino acids you need to group together, so you can build that muscle. Because essentially, right, whether you're meat eater, whether you just eat fish and you're working at, or taking protein powder, the protein, right, is it's not the protein you want, it's the amino acids, because it's the protein that gets broken down to the amino acids. Yeah. So it's the amino acids that you want, that you need to build the muscle, leucine, um, and the other like group of amino acids as well. So so it's amino acids that you really want to focus on and get. So you can get complete protein from hemp. It's a complete protein because it has all the amino acids, the essential amino acids. It has the what else is there? Then hemp as well. So hemp, I said like chia seeds as well. So chia seeds. So basically hemp seeds and chia seeds. Those give you like complete um, amino acids that you need. But my journey um, to like become a nutritionist. Oh, let me ask. Like there was like a couple of times where getting back to where when I was a kid, and then I said it wasn't the first and last time I got the gut pain. So what happened after that? Because there was always, I say not always, but every now and then, as I said, since then my gut wasn't quite on par and as healthy as it should be. Me becoming a nutritional therapist, which I did um, back when I was when was that? Um, I became a nutrition therapist 2010, 2013, 14, 2014 officially. Yeah, I became a nutritional therapist. So, but even after that, to be fair, there were times, even with the knowledge I knew and do know, like that my gut really was like punishing me. And that happened. Do you know those times it happened? It happened when I was it happened when I was in a state of stress. So I remember one time, yeah, I used to work at like a daycare. I've worked in many a jobs, like for my sins in my past life, you know what I mean? And to be fair, I did like that job. The kids were lovely, but it was intense. When you're looking after like groups of children, my goodness, man, that's an intense job. Um, but yeah, I've done Uber driving. I've worked um, Uber driving. I've worked in kinder for daycare. I've worked for a relatively well-off person in his household, where I was like, driving him around and fixing stuff around his place and having to kind of like do run errands and stuff like that. I've done corporate world, obviously I come from, so I've got a sales background, as well, which was pretty taxing on me from a pressure point of view. Later on in my life, I may get into that, speaking about that a bit later. Worked in a gym, and again, that's more like from a sales point of view. Worked, where else have I worked? I've worked in all sorts, but anyway. So there's one time working at the daycare. I remember, you got to understand, like the other thing as well. Kids, they always come with their colds and little things of that nature that they like to pass on to you, little bugs and stuff like that. But bless them, they were so sweet. Um, so I remember one time we had a meeting at this daycare, and out of nowhere, right? Out of nowhere, um, I got this excruciating attack again of pain in my gut, like horrific, probably almost up to the same levels. Mm, actually, no, that's a lie because that was like wanting to die experience, but it was a bit below that, but still pretty bad, right? Imagine you're in a meeting, so we're having this like group meeting at kindergarten, at this daycare, and obviously we weren't like the kids were, our group was having a meeting, so the kids were being looked after. So don't worry, I wasn't like while I was looking after the kids, I was like, debilitated in pain. But I remember like I didn't even say anything to anyone. I walked out like I need to go to the toilet. Again, I didn't have no sudden urge for it to come out of any orifice, for it to come out my mouth or the other end. Again, thankfully, God was looking down on me again. But I remember going in the toilet, like in the and just almost on my knees, man, like really the pain. So, but at this point now, what I did to kind of remedy that. So at this point, I've been doing Tai Chi, studying, practicing, teaching. I used to teach Tai Chi as well. But I've been doing Tai Chi, I don't know, maybe going on 2 decades now. Um, yeah, give or take a year or so. And at that time, I was doing I knew how to basically do. I learned diaphragm breathings. So when you're doing practicing Tai Chi, so I was practicing Tai Chi. My Sifu, he was teaching us Tai Chi, but I actually met my Sifu back in the days when I was 18, 19, and he was teaching like a real kind of like hardcore, intense kung fu. So I was really attracted to that. Yeah, so he was teaching that, and so I knew him when I was about 18, 19, and he shifted to Tai Chi. But he shifted to Tai Chi where he would teach Tai Chi. He'd teach the martial application of Tai Chi, because when you see Tai Chi, they teach Tai Chi in the West just the slow application of Tai Chi. Yeah, when you see people teaching Tai Chi, and that's not Tai Chi, probably going to piss some people off there, you know what I mean, me saying that. But it isn't, because Tai Chi, that's one aspect of Tai Chi. But you have a martial aspect of Tai Chi, you have like a meditative aspect of Tai Chi, you have the healing aspect of Tai Chi. Yeah. So you've got to learn, all realms of Tai Chi. So, he will teach us Tai Chi from the martial point of view, so to defend yourself, like, but proper, no messing around kind of thing. But he'll always say, you got to be aggressive. And then people would like, some students, would kind of like, not argue with him, but like say, but I thought Tai Chi was soft. And he's like, well, what are you going to do, if with your kids and someone attacks you and your kids? You're going to like think, oh, please, you need to protect yourself. So he was a very humble guy, but he was also a no-nonsense guy as well when it came down to the crunch. What I mean? When it came down to protecting yourself, himself or his family. And he wanted you to have that mentality as well. When it came to practicing the martial, you do what you need to do and you get out of that situation as quickly as possible. You know what I mean? But anyway, so yeah, I learned from him as part of Tai Chi, Qigong breathing. Yeah, so generating chi is energy. Yeah, so when you're generating chi, which is energy, you do that by breathing, like focusing on just below the belly button, and they call that the dantian. Yeah, so the dantian is like um, dantian is energy point just below your belly button. It's like a furnace. Yeah. So when you breathe in and you expand your abdomen, yeah, you focus on like the dantian, and then you let it go, breathe out, and you let your abdomen contract, yeah, and you focus on the dantian. So basically, you're cultivating and you're building up chi, you're building up energy. And the idea behind that is that eventually you're able to kind of manipulate that energy and move it around your body, yeah, for healing purposes. Move it around, okay. So that's what you can do, from the practice of that. So then when I was having this like gut pain attack at this daycare and I'm almost rolled up on the bloody floor, I started doing my breathing, yeah, my qigong breathing, spanning and focusing on the pain. So I breathe into the pain. So basically, I was using energy, to really kind of like relieve the pain, and then eventually the pain kind of subsided, and went away. So thankfully, I had that, as part of my repertoire, like my resources to use that to kind of to help with that pain. But so yeah, so there was that time, and there was another time as well. And again, you see, even as a nutritionist, like we do stupid things. Well, at least I do. I don't know. I don't want to speak for everyone. You know what I mean? But at one point, I started eating a lot of gluten. Not a lot, but I started like eating gluten-free stuff. And you got to understand, yeah, the gluten-free stuff is like highly processed as well. So maybe I was kind of be trying to be a bit ignorant, having like gluten-free, or what was the other one? I used to have soya meat and all them things of that nature. Like, nah, I mean, to be fair, I would actually say like you choose between soy meat and like the real meat, or the soy chicken and real chicken. Like, eat the real stuff, because the other stuff, it's like for them to like put that together, it's highly processed, and they market it to you like, the buzzwords these days is plant-based, right? But they market that to you, what I mean, just like on the back of that, or plant-based. So plant-based is pure, like the essence of plant-based whole food eating. That's a pure way of eating. But now what they'll do when you've got these plant-based alternatives, meat alternatives, they're highly processed. So all honesty, if someone came to me and said, which one, I'd actually say, you know what, you better off going and eat a chicken. At least eat a real bloody chicken, as opposed to, like, what I mean, plant-based or soy meat, what I mean. So this is what I was doing every now and then, even as um having, I think, was this a bit, yeah, I'm sure it was a bit after, what I mean. Definitely the gluten-free stuff I was having, which is processed as well. So there's one time I was having a gluten-free, what I used to do, have these crackers, right? And I used to like spread it with I used to have crushed avocado on top of it and smoked salmon. That was lovely. I used to love that. You know what I mean? So that was me trying to be Mr. Healthy and stuff like that. That was back in the day when I used to have like smoked salmon and eggs for breakfast and stuff like that. But my breakfast is fruits. That's how I start. That's how I break my fast. Yeah, I break fast in the morning with fruits now. I've done for a few years or so. So, but yes, I was having a cracker, some crushed avocado, and that some salmon. I remember eating this cracker, right, and the pain again in my gut. Yeah, because obviously there's an ingredient in there. Because again, for them to make these things, there's certain kind of like, maybe there's like refined. You've got these seed oils in there. You've got these other like substances they put in there, to make that um in replacement of the gluten. And yeah, that rocked my stomach. So I was trying to not eat gluten, because you got to understand as well, for your listeners, gluten is a group of proteins, right? So all wheat containing products, yeah, have gluten. Even in, like, you even find some of your shampoos, maybe even some of your moisturizers, but definitely some of your shampoos has even gluten in there, which some of you may not even know. Yeah, but and even some of your foods like sauces, they may have gluten in there as well. But basically, any kind of wheat based product has gluten in there. So then the gluten, because it's a group of proteins, and it's like a glue basically. Yeah. So it's very difficult for your body to digest, yeah, gluten. So what happens, yeah, it's difficult for your body to digest one. So that creates inflammation within your gut lining. Okay, so this is a bit of a vicious circle, because what happens when you eat gluten, that stimulates a something in your system, a substance called zonulin. Zonulin, yeah, when zonulin is stimulated, zonulin causes the gaps in your gut lining to open up wider, because your gut lining is where you're absorbing your food. So that's your your intestines, yeah, your small intestines where you're absorbing your food. Okay, so this is your gut lining. All right. So normally when you're eating your food, your body obviously breaks that food down into like into obviously like chyme, like breaks it down, goes through the stomach and stuff like that. Um, by the time when it gets to being like broken down into very small, nutrients for your body to digest, yeah, it goes through your gut lining. Okay, and there's very small gaps called gap junctions in your gut lining that it has to go through, that it passes through. Yeah, and then you've got like a part of that behind your intestinal, your gut lining is your immune system. About 70 to 80% of your immune system. All right. So when it goes through the gut, the small intestine, your gut lining, that's when it gets absorbed into your bloodstream, and that's when it's actually a part of your body. Because when you eat something, drink something, and it goes down your digestive tract, your whole digestive tract is basically all the way from your esophagus, yeah, down through to your stomach, down through your gut, through your anus. That's your whole digestive tract. Okay, your food is still on the outside of your body, yeah, until it passes through your small intestine, yeah, and goes into your bloodstream, because it's your blood is the transport system, yeah, that takes like the nutrients to the cells where the cells make use of them, yeah. The blood is the transport system. It's the highway, it's the motorway, all right, that takes the nutrients where it needs to go. But obviously, we want to make sure, your body wants to make sure certain substances don't get into the blood that shouldn't be there. Yeah. So that's why you got your immune system there. It's a part of this, like, this this layer. They call it like an epithelial layer, where you've got cells that are what called keratinized cells, and these cells are, and see that they're wet, because when you're eating something, you have these cells lining the esophagus, basically lining your digestive tract. So when you're eating, there's friction, right? When you're eating things of that nature, so these cells have to be wet to allow for food to pass through. You don't want it being like, you're having any friction, and when you're eating your food. So it's the same within your in your gut as well. You've got this what's called keratinized cells, which are wet cells. You've got part of your immune system that makes up that as well, and you've got this mucus layer as well. So you kind of, and you've got muscle as well as part of that layer as well. That helps them, things contract, expand and contract, so things can be moved along. Essentially, you've got these different these layers. Okay, so part of the layer of your digestive tract contains your immune system. So as I said, when the food goes through your small intestine, through these gaps, normally they're small, yeah, you absorb your nutrients. But then what happens when you're eating gluten containing foods? Zonulin is produced. Zonulin makes these gaps widen. Now you're going to get large food particles, proteins passing through into the bloodstream. Yeah. You also get opportunistic pathogenic bacteria that normally wouldn't be able to get through. They're also passing through into the bloodstream as well now. Okay, because the gaps are widened because of gluten. All right. So now this causes inflammation because how what creates inflammation is your immune system. The immune system creates inflammation in order to attack, yeah, something of a pathogenic nature that's in your body that shouldn't be in your body, and to also repair. Okay, inflammation is part of that process, so it's not a bad thing. Yeah, inflammation is a bad thing when it's continuous. Yeah, when it's chronic over a period of time, you've got this low grade inflammation that keeps going, and a lot of basically diseases, the cause of diseases is this kind of chronic low grade inflammation that's happened over months, like or years, that keeps going away. So it's like a smoldering fire. Yeah, you want your immune system to basically go back down to baseline levels. Yeah, once it kind of kicks into gear, you want that, so it can go and fight and do what it needs to do, you know, and get rid of any pathogens in your system. But then you want it to kind of come back to like baseline levels, i.e., you don't want to be ramped up all the time, what's creating inflammation. But essentially, that's going to be happening, right? Because if you're like eating gluten and that's difficult in itself to digest, so the gluten is actually going to cause inflammation, and the inflammation is also going to make your gap junctions, these tight junctions, which are normally tight, they're going to make those open up as well, in addition to that zonulin. Okay, so now you're going to get all these things passing through. Your immune system's activated because 70 to 80% of your immune system sitting there is waiting. That's going to be activated. It's like, who are you? I don't recognize you. And so it mounts an attack, uses inflammation when it sees these large food proteins coming through. When it sees these large, well, not large, but pollen as well. Yeah. So the reason why you're allergic to pollen, because pollen's getting into your bloodstream. Okay. So for you people that maybe got allergies, look to the gut. Yeah. Pollen is um is a gut issue, that you've got going on, because you've got pollen that you're essentially breathing in, yeah, and it's coming through into the gut, and it's creating like inflammation because it's getting into your bloodstream, yeah, where and the body, basically the body's like, you shouldn't be in here because you're going to basically cause problems, because the body knows once certain things like pollen, obviously pathogenic bacteria or any other pathogenic microbes get into the bloodstream, large food particles, proteins, that's going to be an issue, because then obviously that's going to get them access to your organs, yeah, and obviously we don't want that, because it goes to your cells, and obviously the cells are part of your organs, yeah. Cells form tissues, tissues form organs. All right, so that's why your body goes on high alert to eradicate these things. So yeah, basic gluten. So that's essentially, so I was essentially trying to avoid eating gluten because of the inflammation it can create. But likewise, when you're eating gluten-free foods, obviously, if they're full of processed things as well, that's also going to create inflammation because they're highly processed, even though they're marketed to us as being, potentially, healthy foods and stuff like that. But that time, yeah, I had another kind of like gut attack as well, because I just wanted, like, the flavor and stuff like that. Um, Even as a nutritionist, I still wanted to kind of like have my cake, so to speak, and eat it. But yeah, by me, why did I decide to become a nutritionist? Knowledge. I had no knowledge. Obviously, after changing my way of eating when I was 28, I kind of gained some knowledge, obviously, being vegan and what to eat, what not to eat. I was vegan, and I wasn't eating even like white rice as well. So I was pretty like, by certain people's standards, I was pretty strict. And that's one thing with me, right? When I do something, I can't do, me personally, my nature is I can't do something a gradual step by step process, which probably is a better way for anyone wanting to transition. Yeah. If you're out there and you're wanting, like, let's say you experience a lot of gut pain, yeah, you're suffering with your health, look at what you're eating, okay? And if you're looking to make a transition, don't do it like how I did it, because that's my nature, and that's a bit too brutal, especially if you're already kind of in a poorly state and you're going through a certain condition. All right. So, because anything I'm saying here is not to be taken as advice, just to let you know. Yeah, this is what I do. This is what Darren does. Okay. So, this is what I would do. So don't take my what I'm saying as advice, as medical advice. Obviously, go and see your doctor. Get the advice from your who's ever looking after you from a care point of view. It's probably obviously going to be your doctor. When it comes to changing your diet or making any changes to your lifestyle. Yeah, I'm not looking here to advise you. All right, anything I'm saying of that nature. But you know, um, what you can discuss with your doctor is like looking at how you're eating. Yeah, but if you're poorly, and if you're looking to make a transition, especially as well, from how you're eating to a more healthier lifestyle, more well balanced, whole food, plant based is what I would suggest lifestyle. Don't do it gradually. Do not do it all at one time because that's what used to cause the headaches. And you obviously haven't got the knowledge, right? You don't know what to eat, what to drink. So you just end up cutting, or at least I did, and end up cutting out everything. And you may put yourself in a worse situation especially if you've got a condition going on, or if you're poorly already. So make sure you get the advice from a doctor, and then work with a doctor in addition, maybe with a nutritionist as well. I would suggest that have your doctor, make sure your doctor is working, like have your nutritionist work with your doctor, and then that's like a good combination right there. Okay, because there are some good doctors out there. There are some doctors obviously that don't believe in this whole food eating, and but you need to understand, it's corny as it sounds, right? You know what I mean? But it's not corny to me. Your food is your medicine. But I'm going to go even one step further. Yeah. Your food codes you. Yeah. You need to understand the impact of the food you're eating. Yeah. I heard this, I can't remember who the person was, but it's so true. Your food is information. Yeah. That information literally tells genes in your body which genes to switch on and which genes to switch off. So now, when you're eating this highly inflammatory food, yeah, when your lifestyle is way out of whack, way out of balance, okay, from a food point of view, from a high stress point of view, if your work's got you under stress and pressure, if your lifestyle's stressed, that's going to create inflammation, which is going to affect the gut lining, which is to open up those tight junctions. Yeah, that's going to loosen those. And by the way, they call that's leaky gut. That's what they refer to. So whenever you're hearing that term leaky gut is when your gut lining, your intestinal wall, yeah, has become loose. It's become, you know, too permeable, yeah, and it's letting things in, okay, that shouldn't be able to get through and be absorbed into the body, okay. But you're coding yourself, yeah, for good or for bad, by the food you eat, and also by your thoughts, which feed you as well. So it's on both fronts. So what you think will code you, it's called epigenetics. Yeah, because epigenetics basically is to do with like the genes. Genes are switching on and off. What genes are being activated in the body, what genes are being turned off in the body. Okay, so how you think will actually do that as well, or how you think with obviously a powerful emotion behind it will do that. Okay, and you got to understand we think like thousands of times a day. So I always say to someone as well, if you're looking to transition to a more whole food, plant-based, healthier eating lifestyle, that's fantastic. That's great. Yeah, but make sure you get your thinking right as well, and your emotions alongside that, because you're thinking and feeling thousands of times a day. Yeah, and essentially you should be eating only really 3 times a day, but you may be people that snack out there, you know, but essentially you're eating 3 times a day. So you're coding yourself with food 3 times a day, but if your thoughts are thousands and thousands of times a day, and your feelings that you experience, yeah, obviously that's going to trump to a certain degree, kind of what, especially if your thoughts are really dark, what you're eating. Yeah, so do both. If you're a person, if you're a person of that nature where your thoughts aren't as they should be, yeah, you need to work with both. You need to work on both. Okay, so again, you may need to see someone about that, maybe get some professional help. um, um, get some professional help regarding that. So, what was I getting? Yeah, so coding of food. So basically, food is information. So the food you eat, for good or bad. So if your food is not of high quality, it's highly processed. If it's high sugar based food, if it's not even food, if it's like the body can't even recognize it as food. If it's like um, unhealthy fats, so trans fats, yeah, like if you've got a lot of seed oils going on in your diet, if you're eating a lot of processed carbohydrates, yeah, if you're eating what's the other one, like bad proteins, real kind of like junk food proteins from like your fast food places, all that's going to code your body, because food is information. When it gets broken down into nutrients, it's information that your body takes in, and it that information dictates how your body is basically the processes that are going to take place in your body. All right, that's what's going to happen. Yeah, that's what's going to be coding you. So information, the food that you eat is information. That information actually has an effect, causes processes, in your body. Because when we eat, essentially, we're eating food to break it down into, obviously, into the nutrients, so our body can absorb those nutrients, so that can fuel the cells, yeah, and create energy. Yeah, so obviously the whole point of eating is to create energy. Yeah, so it's from a metabolic point of view, and there's obviously a lot of metabolic diseases out there, because that process is not is being interrupted. You know, you're not, when you're eating food. I'll give you an example. It's like cancer. Cancer is cancer. Obviously, are like the cells that have gone away. You know what I mean? They've basically multiplied, multiplied, and multiplied. Yeah. So the cancer cell is a mutant cell, and then what it will do, a cancer cell will essentially feed off sugar. Yeah, so cancer cells, has a lot of receptors for glucose. That's why you may hear, like, people when they're saying it's good to, like, cut down your glucose intake, cut down your sugar intake completely. You know what I mean? To stop feeding the cancer, because your cancer cell has a lot of glucose and receptors. So receptors on your cell, yeah, you've got these like they got these things. It's like a lock and key basically. Yeah. So you'll get something, a glucose will come along, yeah, and that's like the key, and that will lock into the receptor sitting on the cell of the cancer. Okay, so you've got lots of those. So it's like a lock and key system. That's how you, when your body, um, when you've got these different, like, all the cells in your body have these, like, have receptors. Okay, and how your cells communicate, yeah, is with hormones. Like, hormones basically are your chemical messengers. Yeah, so hormones get taken, go through the body, and they dock on your cells, and that tells the cells do a specific action, or maybe to create a specific protein, yeah, or to turn off a specific gene, to turn on a specific gene. All right. So and this is what food is doing. It's dictating that. Okay. So yeah, I went off in a bit of a tangent essentially. So I was talking about, like, yeah, the cells of the cancer. So cancer, normally how when we're breathing, yeah, obviously we're that's aerobic, yeah, with oxygen. Yeah, so normally how your cells, what they do, yeah, your cells use oxygen, yeah, to essentially, create energy. Okay, so that's some aerobic, yeah, because when you're doing aerobics, that means with oxygen. Okay, so that's why oxygen is very important for us. That's why you should also practice diaphragm breathing to get in as much oxygen as possible, not just breathe from your chest. Practice diaphragm breathing to intake a lot of oxygen, to oxygenate your body, because your cells need oxygen, okay, to perform the task as well, that they need to do, the processes in the body, and that they need to undertake to create energy. They need oxygen. What happens over a period of time, if you're doing shallow breathing from your chest, yeah, if you're doing things of that nature, if you're not oxygenating the cells of the body enough, and obviously that oxygen also comes in via the food as well, yeah, then essentially what your cells do, they have to switch, yeah, where they get their how they get energy. So what your cell will do, which turns in, it mutates into a cancer cell, and then it becomes anaerobic. Yeah. So now it's basically multiplying, yeah, without oxygen. Okay, and how it does that is through the feeding of like glucose. Yeah. So you've switched from aerobic to anaerobic. Yeah. So you've kicked that into play. All right, because you haven't intaken, you've coded your body over such a long period of time. This is what happens to certain people where they're eating certain foods, they're not active, the body's not being oxygenated enough. Yeah, and eventually your cells are like, okay, damn, I need to keep producing. Yeah, I need to like do my job, but I can't do my job because I haven't got the oxygen I need. Okay, no problem. This is what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to change. I'm going to mutate. So I'm going to go anaerobic. So now I'm anaerobic. Yeah, I can still basically, you know, get energy. So I don't need oxygen anymore. You know, I've adapted. You know, so it's cancer is just like the cells thinking that they're doing the right thing by you, but obviously they're not. You know, but you need to be aware. You know, obviously that's an extreme example. I'm not saying obviously you eat unhealthy, you're going to get cancer. You know, but obviously there are lots of cases where that does happen. So you need to obviously take stock that the food you're eating is coding you, it's information, yeah, and that information it's giving instructions to your cells, and it's giving instructions to your genes, yeah, what genes to turn on and what genes to turn off. If you're eating unhealthy, inflammatory, um, unwholesome food, that's going to kick on, yeah, um, genes to create inflammation. All right. If you're thinking detrimental thoughts, that's going to kick on genes, yeah, and the feelings that you're feeling to create inflammation. So when you have better thoughts, when you're eating healthier, that's going to instruct your body. When you're eating whole foods, plant foods, yeah, and that's going to instruct your body to downgrade, yeah, downregulate inflammation. It's going to tell your immune system to relax, to chill out. So that's why it's important. So getting back to what I was saying, um, information, like learning information is why I decided to become a nutritionist, to learn like, how food, the effects it has on the body. And I went through a 3-year program. Yeah, I studied in London, so I'm here in Switzerland, right? But I studied to become a nutritionist while working. Well, I was working full time, um, which is crazy. Like, no, I was working like 80% in the beginning. So I was working 4 days a week initially. But basically, then I started working full time. So basically, while I was studying to become a nutritionist, I was working here in Switzerland. Crazy. So basically, this was like 2010, 2009, I started. So I went to I studied in London at CNM, College of Naturopathic Medicine. Yeah, give you a little shout out there. And we used to be near Oxford Street when I used to study there, but now they've got bigger facility in King's Cross, which I've yet to visit. It looks very nice. But basically, I studied for 3 years, and you basically taught like or you got like in your first year, you're just learning about the body, you learn about the anatomy, physiology, how things work, how all organs, how tissues work, how cells work, what's in a cell, what makes up a cell, the organelles, the mitochondria which produce energy, all the different things, the phospholipid layer, the outside layer of a cell. Um, you learn all about that, you know, when you're studying to become at least at the College of Naturopathic Medicine where I studied. Yeah, so the first year is just all you learn about all the system, or you learn about all the systems of the body: digestive system, cardiovascular system, skeletal system, muscular system, immune system, nervous system, endocrine system. Like you learn it all, and I love it. Like you can't stop learning. That you never stop. You could like live 5 lifetimes and still keep learning, and you always want to be learning. It's such a great thing. But yeah, 3 years, and it's 3 intense years because, like I said, I was living here, fly. What I used to do, I would, which is nuts, on a Friday after on a Friday after work, I would straight from work. I'd go to the airport. I'd catch the last flight from Zurich, and it was always bloody delayed. I'm not even going to say to you who the airline was, because I don't want to give you like any advertising, like, or any PR, even if it is bad PR. You know what I mean? But used to get on my bloody nerves. It used to be late, so my flight was meant to always be about 9, half 9, and 8 times out of 10 is always delayed. It always not maybe come 10, half 10, maybe even later sometimes. But anyway, I catch the last flight on a Friday after like no after a week of work from Zurich to London. By the time I get to London, remember I used to live in North London, so I could never the flights I 9 times out of 10, unfortunately, maybe not 9 times out of 10, but most often than not, the plane that I'd have to catch would also always fly to maybe like Gatwick, which is bloody far from North London, or what was the other one? Gatwick. Luton was good. Luton was okay. Heathrow was a pain in the ass as well. Pain in the ass as well. So Heathrow and Gatwick, because they weren't particularly close, especially Gatwick. Gatwick was the worst. So basically, by the time I would get, and I would stay at my mum's, yeah. So by the time I get to my mum's, it would be early morning Saturday, maybe definitely after midnight, maybe close to 1 a.m. And then on a Saturday, I think we started at 9. We'd have a class on a Saturday, and on a Sunday, the whole day on a Saturday, a whole day on a Sunday. So initially, in the first year, I think it was like once a month, once 1 weekend a month. And then what I would do, I'd wake up at 3 a.m. on a Monday, catch the first flight out from Zurich, and from London to back to Zurich, and get back to Zurich at so I catch the first flight at 6 and get back to Zurich in the morning. And then I wasn't working on a Monday, so I had Monday off, but I'd always catch the first flight in the morning. So I'd done that. So the first year I had to be in while I was studying to become a nutritionist. Remember, I'm working in Zurich, working in the corporate world. So myself, like my kind of corporate profession is sales. So I'm working in sales. I got Monday off in the first year, and I only had to be in my first year like one weekend a month, maybe two. Yeah, but it's like 1 or 2 weekends a month where I had to fly out after work on a Friday. Then that's the first year. Then year 2 and 3, year 2, I was going definitely 2 weekends out the month, maybe more sometimes. And then I started working full time. Yeah. So I'm working full time, and I'm flying 2, maybe 3 weekends at the month to London to do studies on a Saturday and Sunday. And in between that, obviously, I'm working and I'm having to study for exams because obviously we've got exams, yeah, through the course of the year. In the final year, that was the year where it was most intense because I'm flying. I had to fly almost every weekend, definitely 3 weekends at the month. We're studying for the final. I'm studying for my final exams. I'm working. Um, I've got um, my first child I had during that period as well. In year 2, yeah, I had my first child, and then also as part of when in your final year when you're studying, you've got to do live. You've got to do practitioner sessions, so you get marked on how you basically get. I think 3 people, and in the facilities they have like a room where you have these one-to-ones and nutrition consultations. So you also get assessed as well as part of your whole assessment to be a nutritionist. You get assessed on how you do those consultations as well with people, and then you get like you have your classmates as well that will help you and like during that as well. So you're getting assessed on that as well. So you have to kind of prepare for that, study for that, study for the exams. I'm working full time. I got my child, and I've been doing this for 3 years, flying back and forth. At the end of that, I was finished. When I finished, like as in when I say finished, as in I was done. Like that actually kicked on like stress in me that took I didn't even realize, but it took some years for me to kind of realize that kicked on stress because obviously I wasn't sleeping a lot during that time, and I was flying, rushing around, doing all sorts. Again, that's my mentality. When I get something in my sights, I just go for it. I don't mess around. I mean, I'm 100% laser focused on it, and I think about the consequences after. And I wanted to be a nutritionist. I wanted to become a nutritionist to get the knowledge so I can better my life and my family and my friends. And then yeah, I did it. And albeit it took everything out of me, trust me, but yeah, I did it nonetheless. Um, I'll leave you last thing about me. What I'll leave you with is okay. So something surprising as a nutritionist that people wouldn't think I do or participate in from a food point of view, which is, once again, yeah, I don't, when it comes to gluten, me personally, gluten, dairy, I don't, nah, I don't mess with that. Bar once a year, yeah. Once a year at Christmas, I'll have panettone. I'm not going to get into what that is, like look it up, yeah. Panettone is like it's Italian cake thing. I just like mine plain with nothing. I will have this panettone. And now here it comes. Yeah, there you see. You're not a real nutritionist. Let me tell you something, yeah. I have a treat once, literally once a year, yeah. And then obviously I'll do, then I do my damage work to kind of mop that up afterwards, to close the gaps. This panettone I have is it's the most expensive bloody panettone you've ever will ever have in your life. The reason why it's so expensive because the quality of it it's very high quality ingredients. The quality of wheat that they use, all the ingredients in there, when it comes to Italians, they don't mess around when it comes to quality. All right. And if you Italians out there, you'll know that. Um, so this panettone, because you can get cheap panettone around Christmas, I buy real expensive panettone because if I'm gonna poison myself once a year, right, I'm gonna do it with the best high quality panettone, and that you can think of. And trust me, I do. It's like it kind of comes apart like mozzarella. It's not like a spongy, panettone that you get. This one comes apart like mozzarella. So basically, I'll poison my, what I mean, actively do that, poison myself once a year. That's my treat. Yeah. And I say, yeah, you get the comments as well. It's not real nutrition and what have you. Well, whatever, because a lot of you out there, you're doing stuff, every day. Every day you're poisoning yourselves. Every other day, even if it's a few times during the week, yeah, you're creating inflammation in your body with the stuff you eat, the things you eat, yeah, the dairy that you have, that you're pouring on. Some of you drink, having intaking like dairy milk every day that you want to do. That's on you. I don't do that. Gluten every day, toast, jam, croissants, baguettes. All that wheat stuff you're putting in. Some of you poison yourselves every day. You know what I mean? But as I say, I'm not here to judge. To each their own, because I didn't. I don't want to get on the high horse here and say I'm better than anyone else because I'm not. We're all human at the end of the day. You got to see what best works best for you. You manage yourself, yeah, and it's all about how you feel. If you feel you can go once or twice a week and you still feel great on it, all good. Would I prefer you eat more whole foods all the time, more plant-based all the time? Yes. You know what I mean? If you can make the steps, yeah, to integrate that, fantastic. If you can do it forevermore, where you change your lifestyle completely and how you eat, I'll be a big fan of that. But if you're struggling, then make your baby steps, yeah. But make them continue and then gradually build up on that. You know what I mean? So as I say, I don't want to put myself out here like I'm bigger and better than anyone else. You know what I mean? But that's what I do. That's the surprising fact that probably people wouldn't know. Once a year, I have my panettone. Nothing on it. High quality panettone with a big cup of like hot chocolate. I use almond milk. Yeah, so I'm not having dairy. You know what I mean? That I'm definitely not doing. You know what I mean? But I've a my big Santa Claus cup. So I have like my panettone and big Santa Claus cup at Christmas, and that's me once a year. Yeah, so that's a little fun fact that maybe people didn't know. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's all I got for you. So yeah, it's been great. If you want to follow me, you can do Harris_nutrition, Instagram, on TikTok, Harris Nutrition, YouTube as well. And then if you've got any of you out there, that's suffering with gut pain, you know, there may be some IBS sufferers out there, who are struggling as well. You can download a free guide that I've got. I put together a free like herbal tea guide. There's certain herbal teas that really help, relieve gut pain, gut attacks as I like to call them. Especially things of like chamomile tea. You know, that helps with the symptoms of IBS and also IBD as well. So yeah, I'll put together a little like a free resource guide. Yeah, so I'll link it in this in the captions in this video. as well. And you can just click on the link and download a free herbal tea resource guide that essentially just gives you three herbal teas and that you can use to relieve gut pain. Because, like, for you professionals out there, when you're I mean, I know when you're out there in your job, some of you guys out there, you could be a teacher, you could be in sales, you could be in banking, insurance, you can, what other profession, I don't know, any other profession out there that you're doing, if you're a policeman, nurse, I don't know, but I know some of these professions, what I mean, they're very highly intensive, and they create a lot of stress. So if you're in that situation where you are becoming very stressed and it's affecting your gut health, you may have IBS, you may have certain other gut conditions going on. Yeah. Um, what this will do, like these herbal teas will actually help to relieve that pain. Because, like, when you're at work and you're getting stranded and you haven't got anything to hand, you can have some of these teas to hand. Yeah, that going to help you relieve that gut pain. Yeah, because obviously the last thing you want to be going through when you're at work, like with me when I was at the daycare, suffering gut pain, that wasn't pretty. You know, that wasn't nice. And I've been through other situations where, my background is a corporate world. I come from a background of sales. Yeah, I've done all those other jobs that I've said, but essentially, I mostly come from a corporate background. So that's highly stress, what I mean, when you're in the sales, because you got targets. And then obviously that kind of had a mental effect on me, that had the effect on my body as well. So there may be some of you guys out there as well that are going through that, where you're highly strung, you're stressed, and that's having a direct impact on the health of your gut, your stomach. You get inflamed, you may be getting breakouts. Yeah, I'll get these, like, and that's your body. I used to get these like breakouts as well. And even every now and then, I admit it. Like, when I'm human, right? I get kind of like, I go through little stressful times, and when I get these little, like, little lesions coming up, and that's my body. That's when I know my body's telling me, you know what, you need to relax and chill out. So that's when I need to dig deeper and go and do my diaphragm breathing. Make sure I've got my teas to hand. So make sure, like, you can use this resource guide, with the tips it's got in there, with the outlines how to prepare these teas, and how to get, and it outlines what the benefits of these teas as well. That will help you with your gut pain. So that's a free resource guide. I say I'll put the the link in the captions for you as well. It's like breaking gut pain cycle .com// herbal dash guide. As I said, I'll put that in the link. And if you follow me or go on Instagram, on TikTok, I've also got the free resource guide there for you as well, if you want to basically get access to it from there as well. I'm also on Facebook as well. Yeah, Harris Nutrition. All right. So yeah, like so use it. As I said, please, if you're suffering, if you're in gut pain and you're really suffering, and you're like, you're in your profession, and there's sometimes you're at the job where you really need something and you haven't got anything to hand, yeah, use the resource guide, have your teas on standby, and you can use those teas to really help you and relieve gut pain. All right. So listen, I hope that helps you guys. Um, you know, Great interview. And until the next time, you take care.